Okay, Zokta Hele Gemara. We're on Daf Samach B'Olamana. Chamra Atika Be'invi. The Mishnah talks about wine that fell on grapes. If the shell had a crack in it, so then it's nice and tam, and then it would aser the grapes. So if it was Chamra Atika Be'invi, it was old wine, aged wine, mixed into grapes, Divra Akol B'Nois and tam. Everybody holds if there's enough wine that you taste the wine in the grapes, when you eat the grapes, that's when it will be awesome. But if it's just grape juice, which tastes just like the grape, Abaye said that's considered min b'minoi, and therefore even a mashu would answer. Rav said this is not called min b'minoi, and therefore it's still 1 in 60. Abai Amr b'mashu, because he holds basar time as dinan. You focus on the taste. And the idi v'idi chat time. Grape juice and grapes have exactly the same taste. V'habalei min b'minoi, therefore it's considered min b'minoi u'min b'minoi b'mashu. And in order to be mevatla min b'minoi, you can't, because even a mashu will answer. Rabba Amar, Rabba holds b'nois and tam. This is considered min b'sheina minoi, because basar shma as dinan. You go basar the name of what it is. The grape juice is called grape juice, and the grapes are called grapes. Therefore, min b'sheina minoi u'min b'sheina minoi is b'nois and tam. It's not we learned in our Mishnah. Yayin nesach shenafal al gabi anovim. Yayin nesach fall al gabi anovim. If there's cracks in them, it asers. Zog to Gemara, kasol kedaitach. What type of wine was it? Chamer chadata. It's probably grape juice. Be'invi that fell onto grapes would aser b'nois and tam. My love b'nois and tam. Zog to maybe it would even aser b'mashahu. You know, if it's b'nois and tam, it would be shver on Abaya because it tastes the same. Zog to Gemara loy b'mashahu. Abaya will learn even the mashahu will aser. For the Gemara, Midikatani say for Zaklal Kol Shebehana Osay b'nois and tam oser Kol Shein B'hana Osay b'nois and tam muter. Clearly, it's mashma from this Mishnah that what ashers is only if it's b'nois and tam. It's not ashering b'mashu. Mechlal the b'nois and tam maskina. So you see, the Mishnah is considering this min b'sheina minoi, and therefore it only ashers b'nois and tam, which is fair on Abaye, because according to Abaye, since the taste of the grapes and the taste of the grape juice are the same, it should be min b'minoi, and it should be aser. It should aser grapes even b'mashu. So it's speaking about old wine. It's speaking about aged wine, which doesn't taste at all like grapes, and therefore it's considered mimish and that's why the Mishnah says it's totally nice and tough. Zok Gemara Viter elaborating on this machlokes between Rava, that is telling the name of the food that we're talking about, and Abaya, who's telling the taste. Zok Gemara, what if I had chala de chamra? I had vinegar from wine, the chala de shichra, and vinegar from beer. It's made from dates, but they're both called vinegar. And one was also one was mutter. Or what if I had chamir de chiti? I had sourdough made out of wheat, chamir de sairi, and sourdough made out of barley. Again, they're both the same. They're both called sourdough. And the wheat and barley, one is truma, one is chun. Abai Omar b'nois and tam. Abai says this is min b'shein and minoi because they taste differently, and therefore it's b'nois and tam. Because basha time azinon. V'ai time el chud, v'ai time el chud. V'avel min b'shein and minoi. Min b'shein and minoi is b'nois and tam. Rava Omar, Rava says it's b'mashahu. Here Rava's shita comes out of chumrah because basha shmazlinon. You go basha the identification, the name. V'hai chalo mikri, v'hai chalo mikri. Both of these mixtures, both part of these mixtures are called vinegar, and vibal they're both called vinegar. It's going to be min b'minoi, and it answers even b'mash. Beautiful. Amar Abaye, Zokta Abaye, Mina Aminola, where did I get this from? The basar time maslino. That when you are determining if something is min b'minoi or not, all that counts is the taste. The Tanya we learned in the Bryce. Tavlin beis v'gimel shemois v'min echad. Rashi says, let's say you have like 3 types of pepper: black pepper, white pepper, long pepper, short pepper, but they all give the same type of taste. They're all one min. The halacha is oy min gimel, or 3 different minim. Asurim, they're all going to be also mitzdarfin. So if they mix into a pot, even if I have enough to be mevatel each one of the minim individually, but you add up the sum total of the minim as if they're one min, and they aser the pot. Zog to Gemara, the Omar Chizkiah, and Chizkiah commented, when do you say three different spices would combine to aser Michael that it got mixed into? We're talking about sweeteners. Like you have three different sweeteners. You have stevia, you have sweet and low, and maybe you have equal. The hoil, veruin, lamaskvin, and sectarian, they're all doing the same thing. Since they're all doing the same thing and they all have the same taste, that's why they combine. So Zok Gemara, Zok Abayi, Amat Bishlama Basar Taimas Linam, if what determines if it's mimbamina or not depends on taste, it makes sense why these three different spices, even though they're different spices, but they all do the same, they sweeten. Therefore, kula chat taimahu. If we don't care about the taste, we look at how each item is identified. Well, each of these three spices have a different identification. So according to Rava, this should not be mitzaref. It's three different things. This brisa that we quoted is a whole different shita, who holds all Yisurim, no matter what they are, always combined. The Tanya Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishum Rav Meir Minayin L'chol Yisurim Shabbatayra Shemistarfen Zeh Zeh Shenemar Leisachel Kol Ta'ev Kol Shetiyavti Lo. Anything that I said is a Ta'ev of you, I prohibited you from eating. Harei Val Toichel. So, for instance, you could have a half a gazais of chazer, and the quarter of gazais of chela, and a third of a gazais of orla, and altogether that will combine to aser something. So that's a separate shita. We don't hold like it. We only need a kazayis of each iser. Therefore, we need, according to Rava, it would not combine. Okay, gavalti. Zog to Gemara vayter. What about chala legoy chamra? If you're mixing vinegar into wine, so I had a big barrel of wine that was kosher wine, and I had vinegar that fell into it, vinegar of Isser. I had vinegar of Isser that fell into wine of Heter. Everybody knows that's min b'shein eminoi. And Rashi explains why the min b'shein eminoi, because the wine has the tam and the reich of wine, and the vinegar that falls into it has the tam and the reich of vinegar. It's min b'shein eminoi, divra kol b'noisen tam. But what about chamer l'gav chala? What if you have a big barrel of vinegar and you have a little bit of non-kosher wine that fell into it? Now, Rashi tells us that when a little bit of non-kosher wine is hovering in the airspace, as it's going to fall into the water, into the wine before it hits the surface, although it still tastes like wine, the reach of it already starts to smell like vinegar. It's already starting to turn, simply because it's in the vapors of that vinegar, and it'll start smelling like vinegar. So what would be the halacha? Abaya Amar b'mashu. It's a mashu because we consider it already to be vinegar. Rav Amar b'noisen tam, we consider it to be wine. What's the understanding of that? Abaya Amar b'mashu. The reason why Abaya says b'mashu, and he considers this wine that already started to go bad, he considers it to be min b'minoi with the vinegar. Let's turn over to Amud Beis. Reicha chala v'tayma chamer. He holds if it smells like vinegar, although it still tastes like wine, it has halacha of chala. It has the vinegar, so therefore it's min b'mina. V'havalei min b'mina. V'chal min b'mina v'mashu. And Rava says it's b'noisen tam. You know why? Because this same wine that you consider to be vinegar, I consider to be wine. If it's reicha chala v'tayma chamer, I consider it to be wine, and therefore v'havalei min b'she'eni minoi. Now we have a lot of problems with this, because first of all, Fekter B'Kiv in Gilyon Hashas over here, what's the difference if it's called challah according to Abaye? If it's called challah, according to Abaye, we've already established it doesn't matter what it's called. According to Abaye, what matters is what it tastes like, and the fact of the matter is it tastes like wine. So if wine fell into vinegar, even though it smells like vinegar, it still tastes like wine, and when it got mixed in, it should be min b'shein amina. So that is the kasher that Kiv Eger asks. Kiv Eger also asks, even according to Rava, Even according to Rava, who says you go bust the name, and he says that this is called chamra, so therefore it's min b'she'enoi minoi frekt Rabbi Kiva, but it's going to turn. You see, it's already starting to turn. That's why it smells like vinegar. So there we learned that's called already what it turns into. Since this is wine that's turning into vinegar, we learned that that's already considered vinegar because you find with sa'ar that gets mixed into dough, we say that that's not called min b'shein amina, that's called min b'minoi, because the dough will eventually become fermented. And therefore, according to Rava, this should be considered min b'minoi. Okay, gewaltig. Let's see the Gemara right. Bastia. Bastia would be like a hole that they would drill into the tar, that they would seal the cover of a jug so that they could smell the wine. And they had professionals who would be able to inhale the aroma of the wine and thereby know if the wine is good or if it's going bad. They'd be able to tell. So Zog to Gemara, what if the person sniffing, the expert sniffer, was a goy and he was sniffing the wine of the Eid? Shapradomi, there's no problem with that. There's no issue to smell. Touching is a problem, not smelling. But what about Yisrael b'dayik kechavim? Because when he's smelling the wines of Tosfos, he's inhaling it deep, and it's as if he's drinking it. Would that be allowed? Abayam or also because it's like he's drinking it. Ravam or mutter. Abayam or also because recha milsi, when you inhale the wine deep into your lungs, it's like you're drinking it. Ravam or mutter because recha lav milsi. And Tosfos explains, Lamaisa, you're taking it into your lungs, but the balt, it's bad for you. Any good effect you have is neutralized. So that's not called drinking because it's not good for you. So therefore, we have this machlokes. Abai holds it's also because reicha milsei. Rav holds it's mutter because reicha lav milsei. Zok Gemara, Amar Rav Mina Amidallah the reicha v'loy klum. Where did I get this from? That inhaling something, the reich of something, is nothing. It's not we learned. Taner sheyisikoi b'kaman shaltrum. Kaman is a spice, it's like an Indian spice, and you use that to heat up an oven. You burn that spice, you heat it up the oven. The avabai is a pass, and you bake bread in it, and now the bread is going to absorb the aroma of this spice. The halacha is a pas muteris. You know why? Lefi she'ein tamen kamoin elo reicha kamoin. There's no taste of kamoin. There's only a reich. And as Abaya says reicha lav milsi. I'm sorry, as Rava says reicha lav milsi. So it's Shver and Abaya who holds reicha milsi. Abaya is shiny hasam the nikli isure. You know why over there's no problem with the pas having the din of truma? Because when the bread was ready, there was nothing left of the spice of truma. It was burned to a crisp. There I will agree to Recha Milsi. But when you're sniffing from a barrel and the wine's right there, only there is it Recha Milsahi. Omar Moiketanoi. Maybe the Machloikas between Abai and Rava, if Recha Milsahi is actually a Machloikas tonight. Because the Brisa says, Haroida Paschama, if you just took a boiling hot geschmackachal out of the oven, and you put a hot bread right on top of a barrel of wine, and now it's absorbing the taste and the smell of the wine. Reb Meir treats it like truma. Azor may not eat it. Reb Yehuda matir. So this seems to be mamish the machlokes of Recha Milsi. And Reb Yosy matir b'shal chitin v'oiser b'shal soirin. Reb Yosy says really Recha Milsi, but by chitin it's mutter. Why? Chitin doesn't, bread made out of chitin will not absorb so much of the smell and taste, but the barley will. So my lab wakamivuki. The Marshava Recha Milsi. Let's say that Reb Meir, who says Osir, holds Recha Milsi. Umarshava Nebidu's Mater Sava Recha V'Leklumu. So it seems like Abai and Rav are arguing in the same machlokes as Reb Yehuda and Reb Meir. Zog to Gemara LeRava V'Adetanoi. Rava has no option because Rava says Beferish Recha is never Milsi. From this brisa, you clearly see the fact that Meir Asher the hills Recha Milsi. So Rava is only saying as halacha according to Rabbi Yehuda. But La Abaye Mile Metanoi. Could Abaye agree with Rabbi Yehuda in the case of the Pas Chama? Could he agree that it is Recha Lav Milsi? Mile Metanoi. Amalach Abaye no. If you dig into understanding the details of this brisa with the path that absorbed the smell of wine, you'll see that it doesn't contradict what I said at all about inhaling wine from a barrel. Because mi itmer law, Omer Rabba Barbachana, Amar Shlokish. Rabbi Babachan explained this brayso in the name of Shlokish that there's so many different levels. If it's pas chama v'chavis psucha, if it's hot bread right out of the oven, and the barrel is open, so there's mamish the aroma and the vapors of the wine wafting into it, then divrei hakoil, everybody agrees. And let's turn it on to Samach Zayin Amar Aleph. And my favorite daf is Samach Zayin because it stands for Simon says. So let's turn on to Samach Zayin Amar Aleph. Divrei hakoil asura. The past then is if it's cold bread, but chavis begufa in a sealed barrel. So sai the bread doesn't absorb much, and sai the barrel is sealed, so nothing much gets out of it. Divrei hakol muteris. Everybody holds that reich is not milsi. Loy nechlaku. You know where the machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir el bepas chama bechavis begufa. Either it's hot bread, but the barrel is sealed. So there's one factor that would allow to absorb, but one factor that wouldn't. Or on the other hand, the pas teinen is the chavis psucha. Again, the chavis is open, so there's a lot of aromas in the air, but the pas was cold, so it doesn't absorb much. That's where there's a machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Meir. However, mi abaye, where I ask according to everybody, when you inhale the wine straight out of the barrel, the hadidi nami kapas chama v'chavis psucha dami. When you're inhaling it straight from a barrel, that's like chavis psucha and pas chama, where even Rabbi Yehuda agrees that it will be asur. Therefore, my halacha that reicha milsi is not a contradiction even to Rabbi Yehuda, who holds by the case of the bread that it's mutter. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we were to finish Daf Samach Vav. Be'ez Hashem, tomorrow we will learn Daf Samach Zayin. We'll have a shir at 7, and we'll have a shir at 9. The 9 o'clock shir will probably be a little bit delayed because they daven at 8:15. The second minyan, they're probably going to be finished by like 9:25. So we're probably going to start tomorrow closer to 9:30. A good tavach, everybody, and a gebench tavach.